Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about the downsides to a low barrier of entry. This is a topic I wanted to talk about for a while, but I was worried because I know a lot of people are going to go, oh my god, he wants gatekeeping. No. I also know I get those comments from a lot of my Seagull commenters. I get a lot of people who show up, leave one comment, and go away. So just to be clear, I'm not talking about gatekeeping. I'm talking about the opposite of gatekeeping, which is having such a low barrier to entry to do some task that a lot of people are doing that task that probably shouldn't. Either they're not good at it or they don't like it and it comes across in the final product. It's the opposite in the same way boiling is the opposite to freezing. You don't want to be either. You don't want to be boiled or frozen. So I want to talk about what the cons are of the fact that it's now easier for anybody to make a video game than it ever has been in the history of the industry. Real quick, let me talk about what made it easier. I could think of maybe like 3 things that have made video games super easy for people to make now. First of all, there's a lot of information out there on how to make a video game, on what the industry is like, how to get into the industry, how to get a job, how to make a game, how to structure it. Even more so than that, even I should say more detailed informationally, is there's a lot of specific instruction. Here's how you code. Here's how you use this engine. Here's how you make art. Here's how you write a design document. Here's how you make sound effects. And here's examples of how to hook it up. And then in addition to that, there's so many free assets. You can go to any of the game stores that are usually associated with an engine, and there's a free section. You can get, the engine is free. Artwork is free. Sound effects are free. You can get UI scripts to do, or you can get scripts to do UI. You can get scripts to do certain animations. Here they are, free. You can just take them and put them in your game. So in general, what I'm saying is it has become almost trivial to get started making a game today. So because of that, it's also easier to get a game finished today. And I want to talk about why that's bad. And I know some of you are like, well, he's going to go on and on. So here's the TLDW. Because it makes lots of games. If it's easy to make a game, there are a lot of games out there. If you want to know why that's bad, that's what this video is about. So why is it bad that there's suddenly so many video games? Well, first of all, that means there's a lot of competition out there. If you want to make a game, why would anyone play your game? There's literally, this year, 25,000 other games for them to pick from. Why would they play yours? There's so much choice that you're going to have to be better. You're going to have to bring something to the table, the screen, that they don't. Which leads to discoverability. And I've got a video on discoverability. I'll link it below. Discoverability is becoming harder and harder in the game industry, which is not just it's different than why would people play your game. How do they even know your game exists? When you open something like Steam or Epic Games or GOG and there's just so many games in there, how do you even notice one? Do you go to the what's new list? That's huge. Do you go to what's new RPG list? That's huge. It's hard to get your game even noticed, even in someone's consciousness, for they think about it and think about whether they want to play. The other problem with having so many games out there is profitability. And I know a lot of you are going, that's a AAA problem. No, it's a problem for everybody. If there's a game that comes out and everybody's saying this is game of the year, this is the one you have to buy, it's easy for that game to be profitable. And it probably should be. If it's that good that everyone is saying they like it, it's probably a good game. But that means, because people only have a wallet that's so big, they're spending their money on that. That's another game that didn't get bought. And if you're unfortunate enough to come out when the game of the year comes out, you're just not going to get bought, and you're not going to get played. The problem is when there are 10 or 100 or 1,000 other games coming out in a single genre in a single year, even if one of them isn't portrayed as the one to buy, consumers still get their attention divided and therefore their wallet divided among all of these games. And their spending gets divided and there doesn't become a clear winner. And worse than that, it's very hard to become profitable because you have so many other games that are competing for people's attention and their wallets that if you only get 10% of what you spent making the game, you're probably not going to be able to make another game. Another issue with all these games coming out is there are a lot of low quality games. And I'm going to be very circumspect by how I say this because I have a video on bad games. and how there's no bad games, there's just bad games for you. I am talking about if there's a lot of games out there, there's a lot of games that you're not going to like. If anyone can make and distribute a game cheaply, then a lot of people are just going to throw stuff out there to see what sticks. And you're going to have to wade through that. And if you play a few games that you don't like, you may just be like, oh, everything's terrible now. If you watched my video on the video game crash of the 80s, that's exactly what happened. So many bad games came out for the dominant American console, the Atari VCS, that people just got exhausted. There were too many bad games. They were just as expensive as the other games. It was hard to tell a good game from a bad game. People just got exhausted and went to do other things. They went to home computers. They went to tabletop. They went back to TV. They just went to other things. And the entire the American video game console industry crashed. This is kind of what I want to get into for another reason that having so many video games out there is bad, is too much choice. If there's a lot of choice, it paralyzes people. There was a study, and I tried to find it online. I read it a few years ago about it. If you used to go buy jelly, there used to be like a few. There'd be like maybe, grape jelly, and maybe there might be, strawberry jelly. That's crazy. Now you go, and there's like 80 different kinds of jellies. And there's also jams and marmalades. Oh, what's the difference between jam and marmalade and jelly? And the weird thing about it sounds paradoxical, but when you have more things to choose from, you're more likely to pick something you don't like. Because when there's a broader spectrum of products, it means there's more likely there's niche products in there. Instead of there being 3 products and they're the 3 most popular ones on the market, if there's 80, there's going to be some weird ones in there like kumquat marmalade, or this jelly has actual jellyfish bits in it. And people just pick one, they don't like it, and they're like, I don't want to buy any more jelly. This is the reason Costco and Trader Joe's does well with limiting the options that they provide to consumers, because they just say, here are 2 or 3 jellies. They're really good. They're all really good. And then finally, I think there's a reason that having too many options is bad, is because a lot of people start misunderstanding the odds. A lot of people do this. They see one indie game do well, and they're like, oh man, indies are rocking now. AAA sucks. No, one indie did well. Thousands of others failed. And by failed, I mean they didn't make a profit. And some of them didn't even sell a single copy. And yet people are like going, oh, I should make an indie game because that guy made so much money from his indie game. Yeah, you're not seeing the thousands of other games. You didn't even know they existed, and they failed. By the way, this isn't limited to games. I love reading, and there are so many ebooks out now. Just so many, because it's easy to self-publish. You don't need an editor. You don't need a publisher. Let me just tell you that many of them need an editor. I've read so many independent ebooks where I'm like, oh man, you need an editor so bad. Your descriptions, the length, the detail you go into is unnecessary. Same thing with indie movies. Now that anyone can make a movie because smartphones can film 4K video and video editing software is free, anybody can make a movie. And you started to see that. You're paying for a streaming service and you're like, what are these movies? Where are they coming from? And you find a lot of them are just little indie films that the streaming service picked up cheap to pad out their offerings to you. But I see this the most in stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is a perfect example of literally anybody can do, because you need nothing. You don't need to do anything. It's just yourself in front of a mic. If you don't believe me, visit any local open mic night at a comedy club and just sit back and watch in real time what a low barrier to entry can do. Because there's a lot of disturbingly unfunny people out there that think they're funny. And they will get up at open mic night and prove they're not. So I like to always be constructive. So what's the solution to all this? How can anyone still make a game, but we gamers still get good games? And I think the answer is curation. And again, people may go, oh, this is gatekeeping, but I'm not talking about having one curator. I'm talking about anyone can write a novel, but book publishers used to weed out the bad ones. Find something out there that weeds it for you. Find a reviewer you like. Find a streamer you like. Once you do that, then they're your curator. You found someone who plays games you like and recommends games you like, and they're your curator. You don't need another one. Now, there is always the danger that they start mentioning games that you don't like. Either their tastes have changed or they've been bought out. They've started accepting money or favors from a publisher, and now they're saying, I love this game. And you're like, that game wasn't very good. But guess what? you're free to find another curator when people do that. Unfortunately, this is the best solution I can think of to the problem that there's so much stuff out there for you to choose from. Love to know what you guys think would be a solution to this, because I don't think it's going to go away. I think we're going to get more games every year forever.